If you guys noticed that in the last couple of videos that I talk about are very similar in terms of its topics, well, that's because I'm a shit content creator, but it's also because apparently there's a new trend around game journalism. It's basically a trend of game journalists quitting the games community because they're toxic, they're cancerous, they're horrible, and they're filled with basement-dwelling losers who fap to sexy women. And you know what I say to that? Good riddance. Good freaking riddance. I don't want these game journalists to play moral guardians to pretty much every single issue that they found in the gaming industry. They just love to take the moral high ground talking about racism, sexism, and policing people for saying mean things on the internet, and play pretend that they're the most mature, most enlightened, most intelligent, or hilariously, the most honest person in the room. The question that should be asked here is, will this trend ever stop? Or a more interesting question, should it stop?
Gaming's toxicity problem can't be solved with DMCAs or Valve charts. It's hard for a developer not to feel under siege in this climate.
Actually, you know what? Let's extend that. It's not just game journalists, it's also game developers who feel so entitled to be a moral guardian that they have to abuse their power, either by DMCA or, in the case of the comic book industry, conspiring together to harass critics. And you know what? If these game developers continuously attack gamers for the horrendous crime of saying offensive things on the internet, they need to realize that the bigger their action towards the gaming community get, the more and more backlash the gaming community will give, and therefore no more money will come into you. Seriously, this is basic customer relationship issue, and you just simply don't want to maintain it. My question to all of these game developers is, do you want our money or not? The article proceeds to explain about the DMCA that developer Sean Veneman did towards PewDiePie's Firewatch content. It's quite odd that only Firewatch is the game developer who dares to stood by against PewDiePie. No other game developers, including PUBG, has made any sort of statement, even though PUBG is the game that he played during that stream. Although PUBG is mostly because they were way too busy worrying about how Fortnite is copying them. The article proceeds to condemn the act of DMCA because it's greedily obnoxious and it's a bad PR move. However, the next paragraph tells a different story.
And yet for all of this, was Veneman truly wrong? Why did he feel like he had to do this? I'm hardly moved by all the hand-wringing about the DMCA when confronted with a far larger problem. In all probability, Veneman felt he had to do this because the options available to developers in this situation are actually very narrow, especially if they're solo devs or from small studios. They are, at present, few ways to make this kind of statement or impose consequences on fans who are out of line.
Well, I can answer that to you. Veneman did this entirely because of his misguided sense of self-righteousness, mixed with uncontrollable emotions. Like I said in my past video, he didn't even consult a lawyer before he even made that declaration. And he is so paranoid that the public is going to associate Firewatch with endorsing PewDiePie's behaviors. So far, the only people who made that association are game journalists, who say that they're going to quit the gaming community anyway. So why even bother trying to please these people? Nobody in the gaming community made that association. If nobody says that PUBG is endorsing PewDiePie's behaviors, high chances are you're safe. And you are. I and a lot of other people do not make that association at all, not even towards PUBG. However, you pulled a move so spectacularly bad that it still ends up with me concluding that you're a paranoid, self-righteous prick, all because you made this horrendous move. So was Veneman truly wrong? Well, regardless of that, I can say this for sure. My opinion on him and his game has lowered significantly. He could have just shut up and not do anything, and people wouldn't have associated him and his game with PewDiePie. But he didn't. He felt the need to act like a self-righteous jackass. Why did he feel like he had to do this? Because he's a paranoid, self-righteous prick. If you want to make a statement against PewDiePie, then just say it on Twitter. Why is that not enough for you? It seems like all you want is just to ruin people's lives, thanks to actions that you find morally repugnant. But your definition of morally repugnant is people saying nigger on a freaking stream, not, say, a false DMCA to a content creator to ruin his life. And by the way, the same argument, was the consumers truly wrong, can be made to people who do review bombs, which we're going to condemn. How else are we, the consumers, make some form of a public statement against game developers who commit horrendous business practices and make them listen? Also, make them listen in a way that does not break any sorts of law.
While Camposanto certainly associated itself with the depredations of Nintendo or Warner Bros. Interactive, they remain a small company, none of whose devs are as rich or well-connected as Shellberg, who has more money than God at this point. Though Shellberg casts himself as the defender of the little guy with a personal Let's Play stream, he's got more in common with Activision than Camposanto does. In that light, a legal tool like a DMCA takedown seems less like a capricious abuse of corporate power than a small studio trying to level the playing field with a hyper-rich man who happens to be the world's most popular video game streamer.
DMCA abuse is still DMCA abuse regardless of the one who commits it. Just because you're a small studio does not make your actions right.
How do you stop someone from monetizing your IP when they're using it in a way you deem morally repugnant?
You don't. You really don't. This is one of the many risks of running businesses. You're going to run into customers of whose behaviors you will surely morally condemn. If you sell a video game and that video game just so happened to be bought by a freaking serial killer, are you endorsing the serial killer's behaviors for simply selling your game? How do you know that the person is a serial killer? It's impossible. And frankly, a lot of businesses don't really care about the customer's behaviors because their relationship is purely business. Companies can interpret customers giving money in multiple different ways. And one of the factors in why microtransactions is a popular business practice is because a lot of gamers are giving them money through these microtransactions. And you know what? The relationship between customers and producers should always be about the business and the product, regardless of whether or not the business are scummy. That's an entirely different story. If producers are not making it about the product and instead make it about politics, they will always fail because they're limiting their customers based on political alignments and or their own biased moral judgments. The recent NFL case where NFL wanted to make things more political only divides people further because there's a lot more emphasis on the politics instead of the game. You could have just united people in NFL for the love of football, but you decided to divide them further by making it about politics, which, as you may already know, if you just look outside the window, people are very divided about it. The reason why people join the gaming community is they want to talk about games, not politics. So you can't stop someone from monetizing your IP when they're using it in a way that you personally deem morally repugnant, especially when you have given blanket permissions to pretty much every person who owns the game for doing so. Doing this will break the rules that you yourself set up, which makes you a hypocrite, a self-righteous prick, and people are going to punish you for your hypocrisy by spamming you with the word nigger in your forums. Be glad that nobody attempts anything illegal beyond than that. Now, I personally wouldn't do those things because I think critiques are a lot more valuable than petty insults on the internet, but unfortunately, I am not the internet.
More than this, the vicious backlash to Camposanto revealed all too much about what's at stake here and what people like Shellberg encouraged by their very example. PewDiePie did nothing wrong. Hashtag niggergate. Get wrecked, you stupid SGW dev. Boo-ha-ha-ha. Camposanto sounds Mexican.
That's funny because I've seen people who actually use the hashtag niggergate. I can't believe you got mad for being called an SJW. However, I've never seen people make the argument that Camposanto sounds Mexican. That's just weird.
And of course, the litany of threads titled with the N-word itself, with posts that were literally the N-word repeated dozens of times in threads laden with obnoxious anti-black racial stereotypes, all in perverse solidarity with Shellberg for his choice of words during his heated gaming moment.
Yes, heated gaming moments exist. When you play a video game, I take that back. When you're in any game, even as simple as freaking rock, paper, scissors, defeat is going to cause an emotional reaction. And sometimes these emotional reactions are going to cause you to say things in the most horrendous manner and insult people with the most horrendous words. It's called emotions. I would never thought that I could produce a voice pitch that would kill a nearby witch thanks to losing a tic-tac-toe. And by the way, all of those people saying nigger to the game devs at the forums, those people say nigger for just one simple purpose: to piss you off. Not because they're racist against black people, they know that the word has racist connotation, that's why they say it to you. They say it to piss you off. You tried to ruin PewDiePie by a questionable DMCA? You pissed the gaming community by defending said DMCA because you feel so self-righteous in your actions? You're going to get the worst of the gaming community. You're going to get backlash. Now here's the thing, I personally don't want to do the actions of these two morons in both sides. While going into a Steam forum and saying the N-word just to piss people off is hilariously stupid, I wouldn't do that to a developer that pissed me off. I would offer my critiques and rebuttals to the points that they have, and I would say them into my video. But unfortunately, I am not a representative of most gamers, and I can control my emotions a lot better. So let this just be a lesson for you game developers just to not screw up with gamers. It will be your freaking doomsday, and your moral judgments are not great for business and your customers.
This is the larger reality missed by those reasonable people who queued up to 222 Campo for Venoment's DMCA threat. However imperfect that decision may have been, it pales against the ugly reality these comments reveal. Even if Venoment had done as I suggested in this essay, Campo Santo would have likely reaped his whirlwind just for having the temerity to say Shellberg was wrong.
Well, you didn't just say Felix was wrong. You also went on to DMCA his channel, and somehow, in your deluded mind, you think that the word he said is the problem, not the horrendous overreaction that you guys have. Okay then, that just shows to me that you are spineless. You're letting mean words affect you. You're letting insults affect you so much to the point where you would commit a crime. You do not have the moral high ground by the time you decided to ruin people's lives over words. Words are not illegal. Insulting people isn't illegal. False DMCA is illegal. Yes, nigger isn't just a word. It has a lot more context, meaning, and power. Do you know why? Because you gave it one.
It's hard for a developer not to feel under siege in this climate, especially a dev outside of the relative, and I do mean relative safety of a big AAA studio. The backlash, there's always a backlash, isn't there, to recent revelations about hidden game design tricks embedded in many popular titles makes that point plainly. As Charles Randall, the developer, recently pointed out on his Twitter, he and his colleagues
Wait. So you're not the only article that came out thanks to that really dumb Twitter thread that I tackled last time. And apparently this also isn't the only article. Like, man, why does that Twitter thread have to be cited every single time? I tackled this Twitter thread in my last video if you want to know my rebuttals on it.
When this group loves a game, it can be equally destructive. Certain developers in their games are treated with a dehumanizing sanctification, such that no criticism of the product can be brooked, which leads to the gaming journalists and critics receiving abuse. Of course, if the dev becomes persona non grata, they're pummeled with all of the violence that can be brought to bear by the social phenomenon that gave us YouTube comments.
Right back at you. You demonize us, you call us names, you dehumanize us. You don't think that we're human beings who have legitimate concerns and criticisms? You're not the only victim here. We both get lots and lots of hate. Since hate is pretty much inevitable when both of us do horrendous actions, then let's just ignore them and actually address the criticisms, shall we?
You cannot hide behind the fortune cookie wisdom of the Streisand effect forever. Indeed, while shining light on toxic behavior can sometimes redouble it, ignoring it doesn't make it go away.
Wait. So you're looking for a solution to completely wipe the hatred out. Apparently you cited someone who basically implies that the solution is to remove it.
Don't kick the hornet's nest. Why is there a hornet's nest in your living room? We find it best not to kick the hornet's nest. Instead of clamoring to prove our neutral and fair-minded bona fides by admonishing Camposanto, we should be asking why there was a hornet's nest to be kicked in the first place.
Well, glad that you make the hornet's nest comparison. Do you know why? Do you want to know why? The hornets in your room? You made it. You have created it. Why? Because the hornets are your consumers. By the time you created a video game and you sold it to the public, you have created a community of people who are talking about those games, and those people will include the most horrendous person imaginable. You don't know, because that's the nature of business. You have created not only customers, but also fans of your work inside your community. You want to remove the hornet's nest? Well, don't develop a game and sell it to the public. I know that sounds like a ridiculous proposition, but apparently since your solution is to remove the hornet's nest that you yourself created, then I guess you should just never ever participate in the gaming community at all and just move on to other things. If you hate people acting like assholes so much, just turn the internet off because you can't change these people and you have no power over them unless what you're trying to seek here is a power to control them. This makes you even more of a monster, and nobody in the gaming community will ever let you have that power. In short, You created this hornet's nest. Not only that, you kicked the nest constantly. You didn't follow people's advice of not kicking the nest. You just kicked it and kicked it and kicked it until they're seriously pissed off. Good God, if you're quitting the gaming community thanks to the toxicity that you contributed, I would say, yes, please. Just go away from this community and never come back. Get out. You can't handle the hornet's nest that you created, then don't sell your games in the public. Don't put your face in the public. If you can't handle any sorts of backlash from people, don't go public. And most importantly, don't even try to kick this nest that you made, because we hornets are never forgiving. Before we end this video, huge thanks to Alison Gray and Akaset Gurvanich for the pledges on Patreon. You guys are fantastic. That's all for the video today. If you like this, you can go ahead, click the like button, and subscribe for more. If you wish, you can support me on Patreon. And thanks for watching.